There is an important difference between invention and innovation, especially when it comes to emissions reduction technology. A lot of the funding that's available treats the two as interchangeable. It's not an innovation unless there's an invention, and it's not an invention unless there's a patent. But a lot of the time, innovation has more to do with process. It's about figuring out how to practically implement a great idea. It's the point where the rubber meets the road. Kevin Krausert knows a lot about that. Kevin is the CEO and co-founder of Avatar Innovations. Avatar bridges a key gap in the energy sector by engaging employees in large oil and gas companies to drive innovation. Avatar provides a collaborative space for these companies and academic partners to discover new business opportunities. In the Avatar process, teams focus not just on invention, but on innovation. Avatar recently brought their unique perspective to the Barriers to Commercialization study, offering their insights into commercialization challenges of energy transition technologies. So we sat down with Kevin to discuss how collaboration catalyzes change, the challenge of funding emissions reductions projects, and the difference between innovation and invention. Here on Carbon Coffee. Kevin, thanks for being with us here today. Before I start asking my questions, can you state your name, the organization you represent, and your role in the organization?
Yeah, I'm Kevin Krausert, CEO and co-founder of Avatar Innovations.
So before we get into how Avatar helps companies reduce the barriers to commercialization, can you tell us a bit about your background and how it led you to start Avatar?
Yeah, a bit of a varied background. Really stretching it back, my background's in research neurosciences. And to pay for my degree, I worked on drilling rigs and built drilling rigs. And before I jumped into my master's, I thought I'd go to the rigs and work full time. And got a bit of a bug and worked on the rigs for 5 years of my life, and then came into the office. Worked in a variety of roles, including business development, and ended up as chief executive of what was then Canada's largest privately owned drilling company. Built about 15 rigs over that tenure, and really saw in the 2015-2016 oil price crash the two things that happened in the Canadian drilling industry. First thing, the industry had changed structurally as opposed to cyclically. We were never going back to an 800 rig market, while at the same time we were being asked to roll out really advanced drilling automation technology with a workforce and a contracting structure that frankly was ill-equipped to succeed at it. You know, how as an industry so focused on efficiency, capital compliance, the skill sets that we had fostered hadn't really been capable of fostering for successful tech innovation. And also to, when you're operating a multi-million-dollar drilling project that's safety critical, capital intensive, highly regulated, it's also not the greatest place to innovate. When you have a well control incident, you've got 60 seconds to shut the well in. That's the worst possible time to innovate. Everybody do your job and let's go. So I really started thinking about how we could bring new models of innovation into the oil and gas sector. That sort of led to the creation of the Avatar program in partnership with the University of Calgary. And the model, evolved. We brought a bunch of successful technologies to market. And over the pandemic, the Canadian rig count fell to 6 rigs in the entire country. And that prompted a lot of conversations with our clients around how the industry might potentially need a new model for industrial innovation. And we then fleshed Avatar into a standalone entity I've left the drilling company, which we've subsequently sold, and I'm operating Avatar as a full-time basis for a little over 3 years now.
So with Avatar, can you tell me more about that? What is Avatar Innovation?
Avatar is a groundbreaking energy transition corporate venture studio. So there's sort of three legs to the stool that we have at Avatar. And it's unique in the sense that we work inside oil and gas because it's, in our view, the industry that's going to be capable of scaling these technologies. So of the three legs of the Avatar stool, the first is Avatar Ignite. That is a leadership development, technology, entrepreneurship program where hundreds of industry professionals working at large cap oil and gas companies, some technology companies, some service providers, EPCs, work as teams and are assigned a technology challenge area in an area of relevance in the energy transition, hydrogen, carbon capture, biofuels, et cetera. And they race across 14 weeks to sort of find a problem we're solving with a viable pathway to a solution. At the end of that 14 weeks, they pitch their concepts back to the corporates, and that ends the first leg of the stool and starts the second leg of the stool, which is our Avatar Tech Studio or Technology Studio. So the corporates then get a chance to choose technologies of particular interest for competitive advantage. And then through our partnerships with the University of Calgary, University of Alberta, and now Texas A&M, we provide them with a little bit of seed funding. And then through a 20-week exhaustive process, they undergo a techno-commercial development and de-risking process where they can figure out if there's sound fundamental science, if the market's significantly large enough to address, and most importantly, if there's a sort of a customer pull somewhere in the industry. And then at the end of that, should that be successful, we hand over the IP and the developed content into a newco and then place seed round investments into the newco through our venture capital fund, which we just closed last year, which is Alberta's first and still only Alberta-based energy venture capital fund. But because these technologies have sort of been born inside the industry capable of scaling them, they've been reaching market at record pace. We've now got a portfolio of 42 technologies that have been sponsored by industry at varying stages of development, formed a partnership with Elon Musk's foundation on his $100 million carbon removal X Prize, of which we have two finalists competing for the $100 million. We've built the Energy Transition Center in our partnership with the University of Calgary in downtown Calgary, which houses this excitement. We've had over 4,000 applications from industry participants to participate. And with our current cohort, now have 1,200 people who are gone through the program or are currently working in the program. I think one of the reasons for our sort of success is I think twofold. One, what we're fundamentally trying to do is shorten the distance between the problem owner and the innovator. A lot of time, the innovator will think there's a problem that potentially doesn't actually necessarily exist, or the problem owner doesn't have the tools at his disposal to actually solve the problem. And so we're trying to create a safe third space for industry to shorten that distance, because the uniqueness of developing hard technologies in the physical world, the traditional Silicon Valley model of doing a hackathon over a weekend and a case of Red Bull, that might be fantastic in terms of developing the new coding for some particular app, but we're not exactly doing significant catalyst testing or membrane development over a weekend with a case of Red Bull. So we're cautiously optimistic that we're delivering a new model for industrial innovation.
So there's a couple of things to come out of that. One, what you're doing is quite innovative. How you're working with these large companies is really innovative as well. Some of these large companies, and maybe some of them, potentially deserve it, but some of them I think all of them can get branded with being viewed as not innovative enough, than not maybe driving to that. But it sounds to me like they're participating and attempting to look at the world differently, maybe do some things differently. Are you seeing that? Does it feel like there's this groundswell of interest in what you're doing now, and do you have that commitment from these companies to really lean in and look at the technologies you're helping bring into market?
Yeah, having spent 25 years of my career in the oil and gas industry, I actually think it's one of the most innovative industries that is out there. It just also happens to be highly safety critical. And that's a fundamental and a foundational principle that our industry has. And we've really become one of the world leaders in the delivery of safety. But that safety culture, while it's amazing and fantastic and necessary for the delivery of major projects, it sometimes can come across and make it a little bit more difficult. But I think the oil and gas industry is as innovative as anything that's happening in Silicon Valley. And in my view, working on the most exciting, and important project of our generation, which is delivering abundant energy to a world that must reach net zero emissions. The reality is the face of the oil and gas industry is evolving, and now new structures like Avatar and others are popping up to ensure that the industry delivers the future it has committed to.
So it sounds to me within that, there's a lot of great opportunity. What are the early barriers you're seeing within Avatar? What are some of the things you're facing that are a challenge to you today that you need to overcome?
So access to risk capital in Canada, as well as a confusion between invention and innovation in our public funding systems for innovation, I think would be a big one. A second big challenge, I think, in the energy transition or emissions reduction space that we're facing is competing for risk, trying to find risk capital that competes against the tech world that is generating just outsized returns. The traditional model of Silicon Valley venture capital is, let's make 100 bets, expecting 99 of them to fail, but then not one will make 100x return. Now, that works when you can kill the other 99 as quickly as possible as soon as you don't have product market fit. But it's really difficult to figure out if you have product market fit on hard tech that you actually have to kind of go and build. So that has been, I think what we need to really figure out is what a shareholder value creation thesis is for energy transition technologies that wins on a risk return basis. There is far more global capital available than there are NPV positive energy transition projects. They're screaming for these projects. And so I think, some smart thinking sort of needs to happen around how we do that. Access to testing sites and research laboratories. Alberta is blessed with some of the most phenomenal research laboratories in the world on this stuff, but it's sometimes slow and difficult to access. And I think we need to be thinking about ways to unlock and access some of these labs. And, I'd say the broader what drives the massive types of innovation is going to be the construction of some of these first-of-kind energy transition projects.
Industrial-scale carbon capture. North America's first hydrogen-powered locomotives. Using drones for reforestation. Since 2009, Emissions Reduction Alberta has been helping to deliver on the province's environmental and economic goals by investing in projects just like these. Projects that pilot, demonstrate, and deploy clean technologies across our industries. Whether it's detecting methane from space, producing biogas from Alberta's agriculture industry, or one of almost 300 other projects in our portfolio, ERA's investments in these game-changing technologies are reducing emissions, lowering costs, attracting investment, and creating jobs right here in Alberta. ERA's funding is sourced from the Government of Alberta through the Technology Innovation and Emissions Reduction, or TIER, Fund, which is Alberta's provincial industrial carbon price. For more information about Emissions Reduction Alberta, visit eralberta.ca.
As Avatar helps to sort of incubate and seed these early stage companies, what are you learning? What are you seeing on the front lines that you want to share?
I really feel like there's this entrepreneurial budding class that is happening out there that gives me a lot of excitement for the future of what we're going to be sort of capable of. So, in terms of what I'm seeing out there is, a thirst and a drive and an entrepreneurial capacity that I think positions the province really, really well for the construction of some breakthrough energy projects. I also see, incredible willingness and excitement from the oil and gas industry for getting involved in building some of these projects. It is not for a lack of want or ambition that I don't think it's running as fast as anybody wants. So that's, I think, the work that groups like Emissions Reduction Alberta, the province, the feds, frankly, the responsibility of all of us is to figure out what that value creation thesis looks like to get some of these first kind of projects across the line that will allow us to deliver abundant energy and affordable energy in an emissions-reducing world. That's the work of all of us.
The perception is adoption is slow.
Obviously, as an innovator, I obviously want faster adoption, and you'll never get a different argument from me, and I obsess over how to do that. But I want to frame it maybe in a little bit more of a historical framework for us to understand where the opportunities are for us in the future. So, if you look at, when we built the oil sands, it was a nation-building project. We were doing phenomenal breakthrough technologies like drilling SAGD wells and using steam and solvents and building upgraders and all of these first-of-kind projects, right? But that investment principle was based on a much longer energy cycle view in the early 2000s than we sort of face now. When you saw the rise of shale, where companies could get a return on investment in increased production in a 6-month time frame versus a multi-decade time frame, it became really difficult to make the case for these sort of long-term projects when we shifted from a world of energy constraint to energy abundance. So the precedent is there. The question is, and they are adopting massive new technologies. We dropped the lift costs of the oil sands from $70 or $80 when we built it in the first place to, in some cases, like pristine facilities like Christina Lake, into single digits, right? That is technology and innovation like I've sort of, you could never even talk about before. So it is adopting a lot of these new technologies, and it also has dropped the carbon intensity by magnitude order to some of the more pristine plays, having a general carbon intensity equivalent to the average barrel around the world. Now we're talking about getting that, next phase of emissions out of it. And yes, I would love to see, massive carbon capture and hydrogen plants and, final investment decisions being made everywhere. But they're constrained, I think, by 2 or 3 things. One, I think they're constrained by constantly changing regulatory environment that is starting to become so complex that when it reaches up to the boardroom table for a final investment decision, I consider myself somewhat more informed on these things than the average person, but I find them incredibly confusing. So we need a stable investment climate and regulatory environment to drive these types of long-term investments. The second piece of the puzzle is the commercial benefits for building a first-of-kind major project in a hard tech world, frankly, don't bear out right now. If you're a large cap oil and gas company and you're saying, okay, let's build this multi-billion-dollar carbon capture facility and we'll be the first one to build it, the second one is going to be more efficient. So so you're going to be at a competitive disadvantage to the next person who builds it. So then you're going to say, okay, well, we want all the IP and we don't want the guy across the street who's going to build the second one that'll be more efficient. And then you go to your technology vendors and you say, well, we can't have an IP agreement like that because we make no money if we only build one of these. So that's the issue that we need to be thinking about. The first mover advantage in massive construction projects that essentially we're talking about is different than the first mover advantage in a tech play or a consumer hardware play. And so we need to be thinking about mechanisms to de-risk the first-of-kind construction projects through potentially new IP models, new investment models, and new return models. But the headline on why we're not moving faster on some of these projects is the commercial case for building a first-of-kind emissions reduction project isn't there. It's better to wait to be the second. And then you end up in this, well, everybody's waiting. So how do we punch those across the line as a province and as a country and as an industry?
I think your strength and Avatar's strength is really directed to a really unique space. You've come up with a business model I think is incredibly unique, and I want to talk more about that. But before we move on, you've kind of given us some thoughts there in terms of gaps or issues. I want to hand you the keys to a different castle for a minute and give you the ability to speak to, if you were the premier or the prime minister or the king of Canada for a day, and it was up to you to, or maybe not even from a government perspective, but you were the head of one of these really large firms and you had the ability to stroke a pen and make some significant change. What would you point to? I mean, you pointed to some things already, but if you were the decider, what would be the things you would change?
Let's legislate incentive tax credits. Let's get carbon contracts for difference across the line. We need bankable, and that will be a major system sort of going forward. Second piece of the puzzle is actually thinking about how we incentivize these early adopters to get things built. One of the models I sort of continuously point to is the venture capital catalyst investment funds, VICIs, that were created that unlocked Silicon Valley. That was where government invested in technology funds, where they took a first in, last out approach, thereby guaranteeing a certain hurdle rate that would incentivize private investment to go into earlier stage technologies. So could there be a model whereby we look at it sort of as a project-based financing system, whereby government could step in and being able to willing to accept a lower return to juice the returns of the private investor to get up more to a level that they're comfortable with that could compete against that drilling of a new well? That's the type of thinking that we need to be having. And then I guess the sort of the final magical wand, if I had it, would be really figuring out a mechanism to unlock hard tech venture financing in Alberta and Canada abroad through partnerships with some of the major players making deep moves on this across the world.
I want to come back to Avatar. I believe that one of the superpowers, and I think Avatar has several superpowers, but I think one of the things that maybe doesn't get talked about, I see Avatar as a culture builder inside of these large companies. I'd love to get your perspective on if I'm right about that and kind of what you're seeing from these teams that go through Avatar that you're excited about. And I just wonder if there has been any reflection from, these larger organizations that this has been helpful to them outside of the idea that you're maybe building the next great technology that's going to help them unlock more emissions reduction.
Yeah, of all of the accomplishments the team has pulled off in the past 3 years since we created Avatar, the thing that I'm still most proud of is the community that we've built. We had our 2024 launch last week, and the 450-person theater was, jammed to the rafters with a lineup down the street to get in with hundreds of emerging leaders cheering on the future. It's been a while since our industry's had that level of excitement. And I think we all know that the innovation process is hard. And sometimes, when you're working inside a large organization, you're risk averse because you don't want that failure to stick with you through the rest of your career. So if we can de-risk the innovation space by providing a community around it that celebrates a different risk culture than a large corporation is going to be able to do, you've de-risked a key component of that. And I think that sort of speaks to the community now of 1,200 people working or have worked in Avatar over the past 3 years. It's pretty remarkable and special. And I think that the community can't be sort of overlooked. In terms of the leadership development component that we offer at Avatar, the reality is we now live in a world of exponential technology change. And so the skills that are going to be required in the future are actually going to be skills around adaptability, coachability. If AI is going to be doing the software coding better than us anyway, how do we build a skill set that can allow us to sort of rise above the chaos of modernity and start looking strategically and opportunistically at how we can integrate new technologies? And that is really the secret sauce, I'd say, of what Avatar is building a sense of leadership that recognizes that not all new technologies are going to work, but it's the skill set of understanding when it works, how it works, and where the opportunity is, and then finding the drive and the commitment to push it forward is really, I think, the leadership component that we're trying to deliver that would be difficult to deliver in a company-only setting. And by allowing people to see the broader energy system has been pretty remarkable to see the development and the talent of where some of these leaders have gone with their careers inside the large corporations.
What are your goals for Avatar for the next 3 to 5 years?
We at Avatar are obsessed with value creation. That's the only way we're going to build a new energy future. So in terms of our goals over the next 2 to 5 years, it's really getting these technologies that some of are at pilot and just about ready for field scale demonstrations, getting those to commercialization, building out a continuous pipeline of new and breakthrough technologies, building up the investment capabilities, and making a meaningful impact on value creation for our corporate partners in reducing emissions and creating value as they build out the adaptability they need in their companies to succeed in this new future. We are operating in the United States right now. We're getting a lot of interest internationally on how this model could look like. Focused on how can we deliver the leaders and the technologies to make sure that the energy sector delivers the most exciting moment of our generation, delivering abundant energy in a world that must reach net zero emissions.
What advice do you have for those individuals trying to create something new and create that new future?
Go out and talk to people. Every interaction is an opportunity to help build something better. It's not about getting the right technology. It's not about getting the right investment. It's not about getting the right meeting. It's about getting out there. And that is the superpower I think we have as humans, is our ability to work together collaboratively. And when you have a common vision of change or a common vision of a new technology, bringing people together to deliver that is the only way it's going to happen.
What do you think is missing that would help hard tech or brilliant ideas come to market more readily?
The reality is the only way the energy transition is going to work is if we can deliver a lower cost and higher utility energy source. And that's where the world of hard tech comes in. And so I think what we need is really an increased awareness from industry, from government, as well as from the ecosystem, that the current model needs to be updated to deliver a new investment model for hard technologies to be able to get them to market. And that we have to recognize that AI and SaaS, while as important as they are not going to deliver the type of energy system change that is actually required of us, and how you can create that investment thesis that unlocks that future. That is the most important thing in my view, to get to build the future we want to live in.
My bias says that behind every great leader is a group of great individuals that help them. So, for you, who would you like to point to that helps you to be Avatar and helps you to be Kevin, the leader?
I think that I often joke that I don't actually do any of the work at Avatar. I just do the talking. And I'm so privileged to be surrounded with some of the most incredible leaders, I think, in the energy industry, who have pulled off all of the wins that we have done. Most notably, my co-founder, Brian Trudell, who, after an illustrious career on Bay Street and capital markets, believed there was a future and in energy and joined our cause, and he's been a critical component of it. Our board chair, Deborah Yedlin, is a constant source of advisement, encouragement, and vision. And then our team of Hugh Evans and Bradley Wombolt and Nanette Ho-Covington and Deepika and Tyler and Blaine and Diane and so many more I'm forgetting about is really the secret sauce of our success. Leadership is only as powerful as how you empower the people below you and inside your organization to realize their vision, and they are pulling off some incredible things.
The Alberta ecosystem is very strong, and it's much stronger because Avatar is in it. It's grown up significantly in my time. I'd say getting older now, in my mid and early career, there wasn't much of an ecosystem around. There wasn't a conference culture. There wasn't a lot of things that we now have today. And I value that as an individual, and I really value your advice in terms of creating those networks. I often use your name. I say, I don't know lots of people, but I know someone like Kevin, and Kevin knows lots of people. And so that one connection is really important. So I appreciate your time today. I appreciate you making time for the podcast, and thanks for being here.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, and keep up the great work at ERA.